Okay, Michelle Kern again, and it's a couple hours later and I have liberated some of the space here. I'm going to try to keep the bulk of my desk given over to working in clay, so I've tried to clean it off as much as possible. I put some cloth down. I've got ceramics project over here, and I'm going to keep my tools, I think, over on the dresser or on one of my carts. I haven't figured out which is going to be easy yet, but I will probably figure that out as I go. I've got cloth down just to make cleanup a little easier. Also, if I need to roll clay, it won't stick to the surface of my table. I realized as I'm setting this up, cleanup is going to be an issue. So I am going to have a setup out in the kitchen where I have a large Tupperware container that I can rinse tools in and let the clay slake into the bottom of that, and then dispose of the clear water as the clay settles. Talk about that a little more in a bit. Anyway, I think I am going to kind of go through some sketchbooks that I found while I was cleaning up. I have a great deal of these. Most of these were created in college in the years right after. I found with the rise of cell phones, I tend to take notes just on my phone, but before that, so I've got some sketchbooks here that I created mostly in college in the 90s and immediately in the period after college. As I was saying, a lot of times I just take notes on stuff that's random these days. Cell phone, put things on Pinterest. But I've been really thinking of trying to get back into the sketchbooks, maybe starting new sketchbooks or going through my old sketchbooks and documenting them a little better, especially since these I did not create with the intent that they would last very long, and they have started to get a little fragile, so I do need to start documenting those soon. Over here I've got a list of things that I am going to need from the school and from my storage, and a list of things to send out to my classes. So the process of cleaning up my space, as usual, tends to get my brain working, get the creative juices flowing. Thinking about ways to organize things kind of brings up how to organize information for me. So I'm going to sit down in a second and kind of look through these. So one of the things I wanted to do while I was recording these videos was talk about how I come up with ideas and how you can come up with ideas and come from just gathering information to collecting it together to sketching things out, working it up to a more developed piece. I was going to do just kind of a PowerPoint of that, but this actually might be more interesting and a little more reflective of my actual process. So I've selected out some of the sketchbooks that I have from college that are probably some of the more fruitful of the ones that I did during that period of time. And the way that I did these was to collect all different kinds of paper. Sketchbook paper, pastel paper, binder paper, and I sewed them all together in a Japanese bookbinding technique. So I would have lots of different kinds of paper to work on during the life of the sketchbook. I worked in pencils, watercolor, bits of collage. Nowadays, people collect these kinds of ideas in applications like Evernote, but honestly, I've never really found a good substitution for the actual sketchbook. And now that they are creating tablets and now cell phones that actually sort of mimic the folding action of a book, I have a feeling there's something that's persistent about this technology just because it works really well and it's hard to replace. I think it's because of the way the ideas associate with each other when they're next to each other, rather than being kind of isolated the way they are in a data storage system. So So as you look through a book or you look through a sketchbook, kind of the act of paging through it, or if you're creating the sketchbook, the act of putting different drawings next to each other can stimulate different ideas. So if you haven't really wanted to keep a sketchbook, or you thought you didn't draw very well, you can see, you know, I'm not doing like highly rendered drawings here. And none of these is really developed ideas. They're little snippets of thoughts, things that were going on at the time. Some of them are kind of stiff and weird, but I could develop it into something a little better later on. Okay. Like little pieces from books. Okay. Things that I taped in. So I have a lot of ideas that I kind of stored up over the years. Sometimes I remind myself if I'm feeling like, oh, I'm never going to have another idea again, I can remind myself I can dip back into this resource and look for ideas here. Okay. So I'll go through and I'll probably just take a few shots of different things that are close-ups of the other sketchbooks.